Hey everybody, welcome back. Callous Draft Duel round of 16 action. It is ThisGuyMuks and Dice, one of the spicier drafts in my opinion. As always, there is a link to that draft, which we did already cover on YouTube, in the description. So if you want to see how we got here, go back and check that out. This is a good set, but we've got certainly on paper a battle of pretty different guys. Dice has been around for a long time, has played ADV for a long time, has been in SPL a bazillion times, longtime CI competitor. Hell, he's even a former Callous tournament champion in the form of being part of the winning team, Quint and Company, in Callous Crew Challenge number 2. ThisGuyMuks, newer to ADV and to competitive mons in general. But I'm telling you that this guy is kind of sneaky good. He's better than you guys might think. For those of you who don't know him yet, I think he's quite competent and he seems like a smart individual, and he is not at all intimidated by Dice and his resume. So, not saying he's better than Dice, but this guy is not going to go down without a fight, and I really do think, given the strength of his draft, and I think he's a sneaky good player, I really do think this guy has a shot to get it done here. So I can't wait to see how it plays out. It's going to be Muks and Dice for a spot in the quarterfinals, and of course, this is game 1 in a best of 3. Neither guy on an alt, we know who they both are. Muks on the bottom, Dice on the top. Starts out with a lovely kiss and starts out with a lovely miss. However, Dice tries to get cute and goes for Mirror Coat, which obviously doesn't work against Lovely Kiss. So awkward turn 1, and Dice, after getting hit with the second Lovely Kiss, is going to get out of the way. Jinx is going to sub up and then Calm Mind up, but it is promptly... The sub is not even going to get broken after one boost by Thunderbolt from Regice. And this might actually pretty quickly get out of control unless it is Psych Up Regice, which is kind of an old-timey set, but it might be good in draft. We'll see. Kind of hard to fit, though, because you're always Bolt Beam T-Wave. So that last move, it can be Psych Up. But, man, if he does have Psych Up, he is taking his sweet time here. I think I would click it. I really don't think he has it. This Jinx is going nuts. It's got 4 Calm Minds already, and there's Boom. He does not have Psych Up. Heracross follow-up? I don't think that outspeeds Jinx. And he's got to Endure into a substitute as well. And now the Endure fails. This is a disaster. Wow. Okay. This is deja vu of the Darth Tyros Gold Mason Game 2, where it took one Pokemon, literally one Pokemon. The lead Pokemon just goes all the way. In that match, it was Metagross. In this match, it's Jinx. Dice just cannot handle it. Let's just go ahead and check their team, since they are both obligated to show. What did Dice have in the back? Omastar, yeah, wasn't going to get him out of this. Charizard, wasn't going to get him out of it. And Kingdra, yeah, I guess he was just boned. He's got like a little aggro spiky team here, but it did not play out the way that he wanted it to. Apparently very vulnerable to Jinx. And let's also talk real quick about the things that ThisGuyMuks used up as well, because that means that he won't be able to use those in the future games. So Mux has, where's the button here? In addition to the Jinx, obviously, he used up his Jolteon, his Sceptile, his Marowak, his Armaldo, and his Hypno. Kind of a janky, like, 1 OU only team. So this actually bodes really well for Mux. Not only does he win this game, but he's got most of his best bonds, most of his big guns still in the back. So that's a huge Game 1 win for Mux, and it's going to be tough for Dice from here on out. But let's go to Game 2. Dice obviously super duper capable. Here is the second game. Mux on the bottom, Dice on the top, Yama and Celebi respectively. Immediate SD and immediate knockoff. Whirlwind there would have been devastating as well, but knockoff going to give lefties the boot. He's going to focus punch, and he knows it's coming, so when Dice BPs, he gets to pick what wants to switch into focus punch. Ends up being Gyra. Seems sensible to me with both Intimidate and a Fighting Resist. And this guy is loaded up at +1 speed and +3 attack. But even with all those boosts, the Double Edge fails to kill the Zapdos. Zapdos takes it like a champ despite triple attack boost. And Dice is going to SD again. And the Baton Pass this time is to Aerodactyl. going to be immediately roared out. Both Roar and Will-O-Wisp would have been devastating there. Dice attempts to get Umbreon in on Will-O-Wisp. I guess you can't synchronize it back to Moltres, but would have been fine either way. Flamethrower is fine. He's going to go for Wish and Taunt, so he's going to prevent spikes. Yama comes back in as another Wish is floating, and he's going to Baton Pass it to Celebi, who is going to have no problem with the cross chop there, even had it connected critically. Moltres comes in and Leech Seed, respectively. SD and Flamethrower, which does 91%, and Celebi doesn't have its lefties from earlier. And that BP is not HP Rock. He's going to be roared out promptly to the Umbreon, which might just Wish here. No, it's going to be a BP, which is wise, because Zapdos here would otherwise get multiple layers of lefties. But he's going to double back after showing the Aerodactyl. And a good double switch for Dice, prompting out the Fori to get the HP Fire Magneton in. Right play, wrong result, as the Fori tanks it and gets him with EQ, and Dice falls further behind, keeping in mind that Dice also lost Game 1, so he's going to have to find a way to get there, otherwise Mux is going to get him 2-0 and beyond to the quarterfinals. It is a Pursuit-Tar, not surprising when paired with Fori, but Crunch is not going to be good against Umbreon. Wish coming down for Dice yet again. Focus Punch, BP, and Donphan going to be on the bad end. Takes just 40%, not a big deal. Entirely negated by the Wish, and we are back to full health. Knock off, so it'll be yet another Pokemon for Dice without its lefties, and an unlucky miss on Toxic. As Fori comes in, and comes in on a Toxic, so Dice not able to pull the trigger on EQ. He overpredicts and goes for Toxic again, but Fori does not spike up and simply goes for its own EQ. And Dice has seen enough, does finally click EQ this time, and Fori goes down, so there will be no spikes this game, unless Mux has a spiker in the back, which I'm going to go ahead and assume is not the case. Will-O-Wisp is protected against as Donphan gains more lefties. Celebi comes into Will-O-Wisp. It will survive, but not very comfortably. There is sand in play, and it doesn't have lefties. Leech Seed on the way out for lack of anything better to do, and down that goes as well. Only 3 pokes remaining for Dice against 5, including an unrevealed for Mux. Flygon comes in, and Dice is going to substitute up with the Aerodactyl. Maybe this is his way out. Maybe he could sub down to Lychee Berry and just clean up. There are obviously in the Zapdos and the Moltres some rock vulnerable pokes on the other side. The Hariyama could be killed by +1 HP Flying or Double Edge. It usually doesn't have HP Flying on substitute sets. The T-Tar is going to be vulnerable to +1 Earthquake. Yeah, I mean, stranger things. The Aerodactyl could be good enough for Dice to force Game 3. That Double Edge is certainly underwhelming without Lychee, but Fire Blast not a huge deal either unless it finds a burn, which luckily for Dice it did not. Doesn't even pop the sub. Yeah, he's got a shot here. Double Edge there comes up short, but the sand will finish the job. And now T-Tar's in. Rock Slide, huh? Do we not have Earthquake? No, we do have Earthquake. We're just not clicking it. Here it is now. Good enough. And that's without a Lychee boost. Hariyama, however, should be completely safe here, even from a critical hit. And Dice knows it, so out he goes. Cross Chop comes down 30%. Donphan takes it well enough, but remember, it does not have leftovers anymore. It's going to land Toxic on Zapdos. See if Zap has Rest or not. We'll clearly go for it here if it does. And going to go for Toxic, actually, and that's going to connect with Umbreon, who, unless that has Rest, which I believe... Well, we haven't seen the last move, but it's not going to be Rest. So I believe he's going to be stuck with that. Does float a Wish on the way out. Zapdos drops to the Poison. 2-3 situation. Flygon, Toxic. That's preventing the Aerodactyl switch in. Unfortunately, the problem with that plan is that it does not stop the Baton Pass in. With Baton Pass, of course, with Umbreon being slower than Flygon, it gets to eat the Toxic itself and then get the arrow in safely. That substitute is not popped by Fire Blast. We saw it was only doing like 18% or whatever, nowhere near enough to pop. And all of a sudden, Dice, who I thought was behind for a large portion of this game, is looking like he's in pretty good shape to win this. Now, granted, that Double Edge was unexciting, but Cross Chop has a limited PP issue here. Not to mention the fact that Arrow hasn't even gone down to what I assume is a Lychee Berry yet. Substitute yet again. And cross chop misses there. I guess one thing Mux could have done if he anticipated the sub was to not waste a cross chop and to go for focus punch. But yeah, it turns out it's not going to matter. Just 2 more double edges will kill him regardless at this point. So that cross chop miss ends up sealing the game. Don't know that it ultimately would have mattered. Maybe it's a little more interesting if he focus punches instead, but I think we were headed to the same place one way or another. This one, like I said, I thought Mux was ahead for a lot of it, and I thought Dice might have been in trouble, but he manages to pull it back, and we are going to a Game 3 with pretty damn strong bonds. If you look at the draft, like I said, link in the description, if you look at what is still available for both players, we're basically having an OU game in Game 3, so it's going to be pretty wild. They have both saved the big guns for the end. And here is the aforementioned Game 3. This is for a spot in the quarterfinals. Win or go home. Like I said, both going to have really good mons. We have things in this like Salamence, Snorlax, Gengar, Skarmory. Gonna be some OU shit. Here we go. Mux on the bottom, third and final time. Dice on the top, and both of them are comfortable with the lead. Venusaur, much faster than Registeel, lands a Sleep Powder and then a Leech Seed, but Registeel does not feel threatened by Venusaur and is not switching out, and indeed, it just stays in. Skarm comes in, gonna start spiking up, and an immediate T-Wave comes down, so trading a spike for the paralysis. Starmie comes in immediately, and Dice probably is anticipating that because remember, it's Game 3 and he knows that it's going to be there. So he gets the Venu in on it, and we've got Psychic and Giga Drain respectively. Psychic did 61, Venu is now at 66, and will probably survive another one. So wisely, Mux gets out of the way. Giga Drain on Houndoom, however, not that exciting at just 13%. And the Pursuit Boost does activate, he does switch, and he's going to do 35% with that Pursuit. We end up with Chansey on Registeel. Registeel now finds itself paralyzed, and Dice is going to overpredict and go for T-Wave again. Instead, it's a T-Wave back, so they're both paralyzed, but obviously one of them has Natural Cure and one of them does not. And now they're going to start exchanging S-Tosses, which is going to favor Chansey with a much larger HP pool. Gengar comes in trying to catch a Boom. Does not happen. Also good against the Starmie switch in. But wow, Mux has the balls to stay in and recover. Very possible that the Gengar there just stays in and clicks Thunderbolt, but instead it is a great sequence for Mux where he not only gets the recover off to get his Starmie back to full health, but he also gets the Rapid Spin. So a very good turn of event there for Mux. And yeah, now all of a sudden I think this is a lot closer. Focus Punch there. That's got to be Choice Banded to do that much damage despite the resistance, 50%. But that's a huge boom for Dice. Taking out the Starmie, presumably the only spinner for Mux, is going to let the Skarmory go wild here, and Mux is going to have to play the rest of this game dealing with the spikes. And the Milo Surf there is going to fail to pop the sub for Dragonite as T-Bolts. That one 40%. Starts to come down, but Mux is going to over-predict and go for Substitute again. Thunderbolt and Thunderbolt respectively. One pops the sub, one does about a third. But something very interesting to note here with Mux, he's only got one more poke unrevealed. That means he is choosing to not bring one of Salamence or Snorlax, which is wild. But let's not miss that play. Dice is going to get the Registeel to blow up into thin air, so he's definitely gotten the better end of the booms. Not only hitting a crucial target with his boom, taking out the Starmie with Doll, but also getting the Registeel to boom into thin air. However, it's not so bad for Mux, because the dream matchup, Houndoom into Gengar, it's exactly where you want to be, is going to make sure Gengar dies regardless of the fact that the Registeel just boomed into it. So that leaves us in a 4-4. This CB champ apparently is wrecking. Cross chop here, very dangerous. That's going to do 63%. Maybe Dice will never get to reestablish a spike, which would be pretty wild after the Starmie went down if he can't ride that Skarm to victory. But like I said, Mux has chosen to either not bring Salamence or not bring Snorlax. He can only have one or the other in the back, and we will certainly talk about that after. But the more that I look at it, I mean, are you really bringing Mence into a Milo that you know is coming, and Gengar and Skarmory? I mean, granted, maybe Lax isn't that great into Skarmory Gengar either, and it is Lax in the back, but man, on paper, Dice should be really well set up for this. He's got the Venusaur for the Lax. If the Mence had come, which we now know for certain it did not, he would have Milo and Skarm, and presumably, I mean, it might have Ice Beam, but definitely at least T-Wave Chansey, and he's got Gar, and it might be Boom or Ice Beam, or both on Duel. Man, he's like really, really padded in this last game against Lax and Mence. And the Lax is about as neutralized as it can be given the circumstances. It's obviously a lot harder to deal with both the Gengar and the Skarm down. That curse is actually really interesting. Now Chansey with a full para has a chance to kill the Lax here between S-Toss and Leech Seed. But full para does not come, and the return is going to take out the Chansey, leaving us in a 4-2 situation. Venusaur also has a chance here with either a full para or good roll. But that is not a Rest Lax. That is a Boom Lax. And now all of a sudden, as long as Machamp doesn't miss, which it does not, Cross Chop takes out Milo and takes out Dice. And ThisGuyMuks, how about that? Takes out the former CALLOUS tournament champion in Dice and earns his spot in the quarterfinals. How about that? Man, I'm really impressed with the disciplined decision at the end for Mux to not bring Salamence. I don't know how many players would have been able to make that adjustment at the end. Obviously, when he built the team in the first place, Salamence was part of it, without a doubt. There's no way that he set out to begin with when he built Team 1, Team 2, Team 3 that he chose to not include Salamence. But I'm not clear how much time in real time was in between games, but obviously went back and made a really crucial and really disciplined adjustment to not bring Mence. Like I said, he would have been bringing Mence into Skarmory, Gengar, Milotic, and there's not really any way around that. If you go physical, the Skarm blocks you. If you go special, the Milo blocks you. There's not really a good way around that. So I'm not sure what Pokemon got added in, which one of these guys was not originally part of the team, but he's going to tag out the Mence and add in somebody, and it's going to pay off big time. He turns what should be a not great matchup into an actually pretty fine matchup. The Starmie was actually really good against Dice, unless it gets boomed on, which Dice, really, really good on him to set that up. And then the Houndoom into the Gengar that you know is coming is good. It's also good against the Skarm, good against the Venusaur, good against the Duel, so Houndoom is another good shout. And then, yeah, I mean, the Lax, like I said, is the one that's like not that great. Either the Lax or the Mence, which are supposed to be two of his strongest picks, are actually not that exciting in the matchup, but he goes the right way with the Lax as well. He knows that a Rest Lax is just never going to get it done against Skarm, against what could be Wow Taunt Gar, against Venusaur. It's just never going to get there, so he takes a really aggressive approach with it, and he goes Curse Boom Lax. That just really, for me, shows that Mux understands the format, understands the specific adjustments that need to be made based on what your opponent has already shown, and yeah, it really makes me think that Mux is going to be a guy to watch in this tournament going forward. If he's capable of beating Dice, and if he's capable of making these kind of intelligent adjustments, doesn't feel like there's anybody in this tournament that he wouldn't be able to beat. Wow, I'm really impressed. The last narration, I don't want to spoil who won, but I was very impressed with that winner, and I'm impressed with this winner as well. I think the quality of play in the latter stages of this tournament, I think shit's going to get real. I think from the quarterfinals on, we are in for a treat. But we'll cut it off here. There's lots more to narrate, so if you guys have enjoyed this, please consider hitting the thumbs up, the like button. Consider subscribing to the channel if you've not done so already. Link to the draft and the Discord server in the description. You can donate if you want to. I super duper appreciate it. That's via PayPal link, which you'll find in the Discord server. And that'll wrap it up. Appreciate you guys watching. I will see you in the next video.